Hmm.
Want a cookie? You want a cookie?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You want a cookie?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Nice meeting you. Good evening, Pueblo, Colorado. The time is 5:30. The date is May 4th, 2026, and I call this work session of Pueblo City Council to order. I will first begin with, is it Heather or Brian? Brian, I'll recognize Brian for 5 minutes. Brian McCain, Chief of Staff for City Updates, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Vinny's gonna put some pictures up real quick that we can look at. So good news, the house on 1310 route has been cleaned up. So if you drive by there, it's completely abated, and we can see here. This is what it used to be. If you remember. And there it is now. So it's been a long time coming, but it's finally done. I think that's the last one. We also had our cleanup event on Saturday. So thank you to all the volunteers and city staff that helped out at our 3 locations. Some of the preliminary numbers from the weekend had approximately 97 roll-offs total, making it an estimated 180 tons of trash that people came and brought in. And that was 38 tons at CSU Pueblo and 142 tons roughly at the fairgrounds. We should get the final numbers in the next few days, and I'll send them out to council so you could see what the actual weights and numbers are. Pueblo Transit announced the new app called Ride Pueblo to help our transit riders navigate all buses and paratransit throughout the city of Pueblo. Ride Pueblo is available in the Apple and Google Play Store for both your iPhone and Android to navigate bus routes in real time. Riders, you can view the schedules, see where the bus is located in real time, or plan a trip. You can just download the app on your smartphone. Again, go to the App Store or the Google Store, or you can visit pueblo.us/transit and you could plan it on there on your desktop. Users can proceed with following steps. 1, open Ride Pueblo app or website. 2, click bus times or plan a trip. 3, choose a route. And 4, go. El Centro weekly fitness schedule. May through July, enjoy the weekly fitness schedule at El Centro del Quinto Sol for a $2 drop-in fee and a $30 punch pass for 20 classes. Monday night Zumba is 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Tuesday Tai Chi 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Is there a video of it?
Bring that truck move.
Or 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Wednesday senior mobility 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and Zumba from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Thursday, Tai Chi again from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. You can find out more online on the Parks and Rec Facebook page or call 719-553-2950. 2 Saturdays ago, the Sound the Alarm event with fire was a success. They made 26 homes safer, 50 people were made safer, and they gave out 87 smoke alarms that were installed in the houses. So it was a good day and a good event. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. McCain.
Selena, can I have just a minute?
Yes, sir.
I just want to add to what you said. I was out at university and I'd like to thank the following, I helped them, and I'd like to thank the following crew from Stormwater. Chris Brodnick, Joy Ponata, John Medina, Robert Morrow, Roz Flores, McKay Diaz, Keith Luttrell, John Rigarazzi, Neil Newman, Aaron Reed, and Juan Marquez. They were great. They were absolutely great. It was an honor to work with them. Thank you.
They all do a good job, everybody that helps out with that event.
All right. Moving forward with the council's agenda, I will recognize Mr. Gil Romero with a lobbyist update. Mr. Romero, the chair will recognize you for 15 minutes.
Thank you, Madam, members of City Council, and Madam Mayor. Pleasure to be with you tonight. As we speak tonight, I think the bill that I'm going to talk to you about this evening is probably one of the most important bills that we will present to you, and we're hoping that the council can take immediate action on. The bill is Senate Bill 176. Chief Knoller from Pueblo just finished testimony in the Senate Judiciary Committee opposing this bill. This bill creates a state-level pathway for constitutional lawsuits similar to what currently exists under federal law. Today, claims like excessive force, unlawful search, or First Amendment violations are typically brought in federal court, and this bill would allow those same claims to be filed in state court instead. And the way this bill is written, I just want to give you some examples so that you can understand the implications for you as city council and for the mayor as the executive branch making decisions. For example, if you had a meeting at city council and you had a large number of people testifying either for or against a particular issue, and you decided to impose a time limit, and you said, listen, you can only speak for 5 minutes, and a person came up and spoke and insisted on speaking past the 5 minute, and you gavelled them down and asked them not to speak anymore, they could bring a cause of action against city council predicated on a federal constitutional right of free speech. Second example that I'll give you that was used by a mayor that testified this afternoon, where she said this would be right for a cause of action where they had a situation where they blockaded a portion of the city, a public safety issue, a fire, and they prevented neighbors from going back into their neighborhoods. Particular neighbor, his house was damaged as a result of him not being able to get back in to that neighborhood. But the decision not to let him in was a sound decision predicated on public safety. That homeowner could bring a cause of action against the mayor for the decision that made. What that means is that, at least according to the testimony that was brought today, is that state immunity for public officials may not apply predicated on the way this bill is written. We hope, Ryan, the other two members of my team are working at the Capitol. We're counting votes. We're going to try to get this bill killed in Senate Judiciary. But we're going to have to put a lot of effort in this bill because I believe it'll prevent you. We had county commissioners that testified. We had a caseworker, social services worker, who testified based upon the advice they got from their county attorney that if they made a bad decision on a particular case involving a child, that there could be a due process constitutional violation that could be brought against that caseworker. So it's a really important bill. We're going to get you the details to Senate Bill 176, but we're hoping that the city council can take action on this bill. I really do believe it will negatively impact your ability to do your jobs. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan to tell you some of the other bills we're following and some good news in terms of some of the bills that were really potentially negatively impacting the city.
Thank you. Good evening to the members of City Council and the mayor. Ryan Romero with Capital Success Group. As Gil mentioned, we have some really positive news. I promise this will be the last time that I mention these two bills. The first one is Senate Bill 70. The title is Ban Government Access to Historical Location Information Database. This was one of the first, if not the first bill that the council took official action on. And there's a reason we've had to mention it every week because the bill was introduced fairly early on in the session. We've been working it pretty consistently since then with the other opponents, the other stakeholders, and we felt pretty confident we felt pretty confident most of the way through until a couple weeks ago when there was some rumblings that there was movement being made on the bill. So we've been working really hard on the Senate floor to get it killed, and it was finally postponed indefinitely last week. And along the same in the same vein is House Bill 261037. The title of this one is Ban Government Purchase of Personal Data from Third Party. This is another one the council took an opposed position on, and very similar to Senate Bill 70. It was introduced a couple months ago. They had to postpone it initially to work on amendments, and finally a couple weeks ago they couldn't come to a consensus, so it was postponed for this session. They've already talked about both these bills are going to be coming back next session. There will probably be some work on in the interim that we'll be following. But for this session, both of those we consider a big win, and they were high priority for our team. And then last two bills, House Bill 261202, strategies to reduce and prevent homelessness. That one's made it through both chambers. It's on its way to the governor's desk. We don't anticipate him having any issues with signing it. So as soon as he does, we will update the council. And then last but not least is House Bill 261313, the Prop 123 Affordable Housing Bill. I know we've all said it a couple times on this one as well, but thank you so much to the city's effort, Melissa Cook's testimony both in the House and the Senate. There was only 4 or 5 people testifying, and her voice was extremely important in both chambers getting it passed. So this one is passed, headed to the governor's desk, and he will absolutely be signing it. It's a much needed fix. So with that, happy to take any questions. Thank you for your time.
And that's our report for this evening, Madam Chair.
Thank you, gentlemen. I will now open up time now for counselors to field questions. If you want to turn your lights. I'll begin with Counselor Dante.
Hello. I came across a bill that's in the State House, and it has to do with the Front Range rail passenger, to do with getting a ballot out there in November, I believe. Do you have any information on that?
We have been tracking a couple of transportation bills. One was actually impacted the city of Pueblo, and then an amendment was made on that bill that exempted Pueblo. But we can follow up. Do you have the number on that, Council?
No, I do not. I just came across it in the paper.
Okay, we'll find it and get you some information on that one. There are about 3 bills. There was one on RTD, but also expanded to some of the smaller communities involving how transportation systems within the city operate, and making it more transparent in terms of the cost to ride, the routes you take. And we'll send that one to you. I don't think there's a bill applies to Pueblo. It wasn't one of the cities they mentioned in testimony this afternoon, but we'll get you the transportation bills that are out there right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Romero, I do have one question on the Senate Bill 176. You mentioned you're looking for action from the council. Can you explain a little bit about what you might need from us on this one?
We would like the city to take an opposed position on this bill. The chiefs of police, that's why Chief Knoller is up there, have taken a position of opposition. And let me just give you a little bit more, I don't want to say balanced. I mean, the reason this bill was brought, it's called the No Kings bill, and it was really focused on federal immigration officers and people protesting in Colorado. And the ironic part of this bill is that the proponents of the bill wanted to be able to bring a state cause of action against an immigration officer that violated a Colorado resident's rights. The problem with that is that if they were to file a state cause of action, because this officer is a federal officer, he would be able to move it into federal district court. And so the state court would never get that case. And so the target of the legislation, they're not really addressing, and the way the bill was written, it's so broad that now it impacts cities and counties, municipalities to the detriment of any decision that you might make that would violate a federal constitutional right. So we're hoping that, and we're happy to get you some more background on the bill. We're hoping the bill dies this evening, but if not, if the bill goes forward, we'd like the city to take an opposed position on the bill.
Thank you. Counselor Gomez?
Yeah, well, all the bills that come past this dais, this is probably the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, we don't have enough litigation out there already. We're going to invite more. Seriously? This is the worst piece of garbage I've seen. And I'm reading I'm trying to find some positives. I can't. So just for its worth, that's how I feel about this. It's garbage.
Yeah.
All right, Counselor.
All 23 of the district attorneys in Colorado are opposing this bill, along with all the chiefs of police.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Any other questions, counselors, or feedback? Okay, seeing none, we will move forward with the council's agenda. Thank you so much,
All
Mr.
right.
Romero.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next on the council's agenda, I'd like to invite up Kurt Maddock and Mr. John Krusman, who will give us a presentation on Pueblo-Plex redevelopment plan. Come on up, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Okay. So let's get you loaded there.
Oh, perfect. You want to handle
Yeah, good evening, Mayor Graham.
We'll recognize you for 15 minutes.
that? Okay.
Thank you.
Members of City Council and city staff. We're pleased to announce and present our updated redevelopment plan. I'm going to turn over to John.
Yeah, my name's John Chrisman. I'm the Director of Planning and Development at Pueblo-Plex, and let's see if we can get the slides going here. There you go, perfect. So really, the redevelopment plan is the sort of the first step once the federal government declares the property surplus, and then we start sort of the action to make a plan and then look at trying to establish basically the property transfer aspect. So we're going to go through a little bit of history here. This is actually a slide deck that we had put together as part of our community meetings with the redevelopment plan. We just wanted to kind of give you this information, and then we'll kind of walk through where we're at today with the whole process. So what is Pueblo-Plex? So Pueblo-Plex, I guess there's a couple different ways to look at it. We as Pueblo-Plex are the local redevelopment authority, the entity that was created by the State General Assembly in 1994 for the purpose of redeveloping the former Pueblo Chemical Depot. The depot itself is a 23,000 acre property, approximately 36 square miles, about 15 miles east of Pueblo. I think most people are probably familiar with the property. Most people, though, I don't believe are really familiar with Pueblo-Plex as an entity. And so we did discover that through our community meetings that we really needed to kind of do a little bit more community outreach and let people know who we are. The property itself has, the current surplus property is about 16,000 acres, which we are actually in the process of transferring that from the Army to Pueblo-Plex. We have about 7,000 acres of the PCAP parcel, which is the new piece that we're actually looking at as part of this redevelopment plan. On the site, we have approximately 600 plus buildings, which include storage igloos, warehouse buildings, and then also the PCAP facility where they destroyed the mustard gas. Also 50 miles of rail infrastructure and about 130 miles of actual on-site roadways. So the history of the site and the PCAP parcel, well, really the site was created by the Army during World War II. Basically looked for storage, maintenance, supply missions, which actually then was realigned when they went to the chemical weapons. And so they got away from that and we're really dealing then with the chemical weapon aspect and storage of the chemical weapons. But you'll recall that in 2003, the project started to actually decommission and destroy those weapons, which they were then completed in 2023, in June of 2023. The last of the mustard gas was actually destroyed. So history and timeline, just want to point out a few things here kind of interest. PDATA, or Puebloplex, was created in 1994, like I mentioned, by the Colorado General Assembly. And if you fast forward to 2024, it took us 30 years to actually transfer our first parcel of land on the property, just for various reasons in dealing with our Army partners and going through the environmental cleanup aspect, and just really sort of that entire process. A couple other things I'd like to point out on here is that, like I mentioned, in 2024, we transferred the first parcel of land. In 2025, then we transferred the second parcel of land, all still within the original 16,000 acres of surplus property. But at the end of 2024, the U.S. Army declared then the 7,000 acres of the PCAP parcel surplus, and then that's where we started to get into our process of the redevelopment plan and starting to look at the property as a whole. So again, what are the assets that are there today? There's a lot of infrastructure on site, a lot of good infrastructure, reusable infrastructure between the rail, the roadways, and then some of the buildings. A lot of the older buildings are not in as good of condition, but they still can be repurposed. And we've got a couple of really good success stories on the property as far as that's concerned. Storage igloos is probably one of our the biggest, I guess, assets and rentals that people are aware of. But effectively, these are the former concrete magazines or storage magazines that we actually will rent out to individuals for personal storage. So I think about 600 of those at this point. So
Almost 700.
almost 700. So this is just a parcel map, kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of the entire 23,000 acres. And I believe most of the members here on council have toured the property, but if you have not, please reach out, because I think it gives you a whole different perspective when you can actually drive around and see how big and how vast this property is. All the colored parcels sort of in the lower left are the 16,000 acres of surplus that are in various states of environmental cleanup. At this point, the tan parcel and the turquoise parcels have been transferred to Puebloplex. So we actually do hold ownership on those. PCAP parcel up in the upper right is at 7,000 acres I had mentioned previous. So here's just a slide of several of our tenants. These are people that have been with us for quite some time, all the way to relatively new. So you'll notice on here that there's ULA and MXV Rail and SwissPod. MXV Rail's CERTSI site as well as there. Voyager is a new name that some of you have probably heard of, a new tenant. And there's a kind of an interesting, nice story with them being the former Estes Energetics, which was tied to the Penrose Model Rocket Company. So really kind of a nice story there. But BNSF, Bay West, South Plains La Mesa Railroad, a lot of the environmental consultants that are working directly with the Army as well. A little hard to see this one on the small screen, but this is really just the same parcel map in red lines, transposed over an aerial map. And in some cases, it's a little bit easier to kind of get a lay of the land and see where you're at. So just like to include this just for that visual reference. So current tenants, we really are looking at having rail-related advanced transportation, research and development, aerospace, manufacturing, warehousing, logistics, storage, and research and development. And so when we went through the process originally in 2016 on the 16,000 acres of surplus property, this is really what the sort of the driving industries and the forces were that we were looking at and trying to really figure out what would be the best way to develop those highest and best uses of the property, which is really what we're tasked with. That along with job creation and being an economic engine for the region. So we looked at the preferred redevelopment plan. We took the 7,000 acres of the PCAP parcel, evaluated that, but then really did sort of a comprehensive overhaul of the entire property itself. One thing I'd like to mention is that in 2018, Puebloplex actually was given a zoning designation through Pueblo County. So in 2018, the P1 Puebloplex Zone District was established. And in 2024, when the county went through their Unified Development Code upgrade, our zone district changed from P1 to PP, and we expanded really to include a lot of these sort of more generic definitions. But we do actually have a current zoning designation on the 16,000 acres and are working towards adding the 7,000 through a map amendment to the county as well. So when we started looking at the plan itself, we're looking at how do we evaluate these areas in terms of redevelopment? And so you get into what does infrastructure access look like? Tenant readiness, high-tech and defense areas, really trying to look at what complementary industry would work adjacent to each other, what wouldn't. Looking at who needs rail access, who doesn't want to be anywhere near the rail for, vibration reasons. And so it's really sort of taking all this into account, as we went through the entire process. So the redevelopment plan project is really just a sort of a strategic guide. We look at this like a living document that's going to help us really evaluate and move the property forward. It's also part of what we're presenting to the Army as part of this first step in a process to really sort of sell how we're going to do this. And next step we're going to get into now is the business and operations plan for the property, as well as an economic development conveyance amendment that we're going through that would then include the full 23,000 acres. So through the community meetings, we actually did 3 rounds of community meetings, and we had a website that would allow everybody to actually access and be engaged in the process if they wanted, to the extent that they wanted. And so you could actually get online and comment, or really just sort of get regular updates. The website is actually still active. We are in the final stages of the redevelopment plan. We're going through our sort of final reviews right now. The final draft has been given to us by our consultant. So we are really sort of nearing the end of this process that started in early 2025. So I mentioned social pinpoint, another aspect within where the public and community could actually get engaged in the process and what we're doing. So again, kind of a little bit of an older slide here, but you can see we did our first public meetings in June 2025, the next round in August, January of 2026, and then March of 26 with the final plan. And I know a fair amount of city council and city staff were part of it and engaged in our stakeholder interviews and some of our work sessions. So we do thank you and appreciate your input on that. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, and hopefully we can leave some time for some questions, because I'm sure there'll probably be a few.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll open up time now for our council to field questions to our presenters. Let's see, I'll begin with Councilor Gomez, please.
Yeah, I've had a fond relationship with the Pueblo Chemical Depot back when I was working for McGinnis, Congressman McGinnis, and I actually sat on the board for the Pueblo Chemical Depot. But back then it was a little bit different message than it is where innovation finds spaces. Back there, if you were out there and you were around the igloo areas, I'll never forget the sign that said, if you're on these grounds and you did not have permission, we will shoot you on site. That got my attention. So even though they were pretty strict back then, because there's a lot of storage they use those facilities for. Sure. I think at the time they had 11% mustard gas. Do you remember all that? I don't know what the numbers are now, but I've been with it a long time, and I'm glad to see it always develops. It always keeps on moving. That became a storage facility for the SEEDS program that we ran, where we got a lot of computers were headed toward the dumps, and we had so many offers come in. We brought them in a C-130, and we stored them in some of the igloos because we couldn't put them all at PCC to work on them. So this is a good place, and I'm just glad, again, when I see where innovations find space, I think that's just great. So really, really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually a tagline that our consultant had come up with when we started this process, because we're trying to figure out what would be the best way to really identify what we're doing. And what we do have that we can offer is a lot of space, and really open to the different innovations. So really did speak to us, but appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Yeah, and all the mustard gas has been destroyed. I just want to clarify that.
No one's going to point a gun at you at the G block anymore, at the G block fence. So you're good.
We'll recognize Councilor Latino.
I want to congratulate you on this, John, Chris, Russell, and what you've done out there, because I grew up with that too. My family worked out there, and I've taken a tour early on with you guys, Kurt, and I'm impressed. I think it's a great thing for this community in terms of job enhancement and bringing people to this community, and I'm excited, and I'll help any way that I can. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Latino. I would just like to add that, like, we see this as like one of the largest industrial and technology mega sites in the country right now that's being redeveloped. So there's huge opportunity. There's a lot of people knocking at our door constantly because we have a lot of space. We have a lot of infrastructure in place. And especially for large projects like that require rail, that require a lot of land and power. There's just a lot of interest. So hopefully we'll have some additional job announcements, you know, in the coming 12 months, I would say. So.
I'll recognize Counselor Hernandez.
Good evening, gentlemen. Just a couple of questions. Do you know, does the government have a date yet on the decision for the surplus property to hand it over?
So it's always a work in progress with our partners at the Army. We just have to work through the issues of environmental cleanliness. And so that's kind of why I brought the point up about how we were created in 94 and it took us 30 years to transfer the first parcel. It's a slow process. And so as far as the PCAP portion, the 7,000 acres, we're just in the sort of early discussions on, we haven't even really started the negotiations with the Army. We're kind of going through all of our due diligence and the redevelopment plan. But the rest of it actually has actually already been purchased by us. Even though it isn't completely transferred, we operate under a master lease with the Army. So that allows us to do subleases with tenants to come in and repurpose a warehouse and use other facilities that we may not own at this point. But as far as a hard date, not at all.
Okay. You said you had 700 igloos or in that area. How many do you have rented out now?
So I think we have about 700 rented out. There's about 1,000 on the site.
Okay, 1,000.
Yeah.
But we have a multi-year waiting list for them right now.
Wow.
So people love their storage units out there.
Can you explain a little bit about what your funding sources are?
Sure. So we actually are funded through a grant to the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperatives as an entity. And that really kind of covers our operating expenses. And then beyond that, then we actually have lease revenue from the facilities. Now, everything that we generate on the site has to be reinvested back into the property. And the one thing that was out there that people assumed that we were some kind of a private developer, and we're not a private developer. We actually are a political subdivision of the state of Colorado. So from that standpoint, we are not for profit.
Okay.
If that makes sense. That answers your question.
Long-term goals, plans? Can you share anything with us at this point?
We have a ton of interest in people who need large sites. And so every day is different. Every day is pretty exciting. There's a lot of interest, and it's just hard to tell which ones are actually going to pan out.
Right.
Voyager, who was in the news more recently, is a big win for us. I mean, it's their ability to expand and bring their operations to the site is a huge win for us, along with MXV Rail. And there's a whole story, and hopefully most of you or all of you know the MXV Rail story. But they've been our anchor tenant since they moved to the property in 2023. So a lot of potential, a lot of optimism, but there's not anything I'd say that's super definitive at this point. We're still trying to work through a lot of this.
I did an MXV rail tour a couple of Fridays ago.
Yeah.
My dad was actually a guard out there when it was PAD. So
Okay.
when I drove through the gate for the first time in 40 years,
Mhm.
well, I've never actually been inside, but I've been to the gate.
Yeah,
It's a ghost town compared to what it used to be.
it really is.
Yeah. Well, there's people used to live up there.
Mhm.
When I was in middle school, Excelsior Middle School, we had a lot of students from
Sure.
the PAD who went to our school there. Do you think that I guess what I want to know is the time between now and when you can realize some of the thoughts or some of the plans that you have. Is it going to be a while still just because it's an Army acquisition?
I would say it's probably on Puebloplex property, it's going to happen much quicker because really that property is subject to just Pueblo County zoning, not just, but Pueblo County zoning, Pueblo County engineering, and the county building division. So the Army really isn't part of that process directly. Now, if there's any kind of environmental restrictions, it would be part of that. But I think we're able to move a little bit quicker on anything that's on Puebloplex property. And I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
Yeah,
but-
I mean, long-term, we want to be an economic driver of jobs and, kind of an engine really for you know, the whole community and bringing back those jobs that are lost because of the Army leaving. So, you know, they had
Right.
over 8,000 people working there in the sixties and even 2,000 until, you know, they finished the plant, the demolition or the chemical destruction in the 23. So, you know, we want to be able to get that back, you know, bring some new industries and jobs back into the community, and then eventually turn this back over to the community once we're done. So it's probably 50+ year project, honestly. So
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, sure, we'll recognize Counselor Dante.
Hello there. I went to the first meeting, I think, and I recall you talking about the utilities and that a lot of utilities were through the military. Now, has anything changed on that? And can you explain the utilities to us?
So the on-site utilities really still are run by the Army. We are actually in a caretaker mode right now, where BRAC Army takes care of the utilities. It's kind of one of the things, it's a great asset, but it's also a little bit of an issue in that most of it's pretty antiquated. And so there's some struggles with that. But for right now, it's still all Army utilities as far as the surplus property is concerned.
So if a company moves in there new, excuse me, their utilities will still be through the military?
Yes, they will, as long as it's, you know, still within within that surplus area, they will still be through the military.
Okay.
And so they handle really all the billing and reading the meters and, you know, sort of the logistics of that.
Okay. And as for infrastructure, are you having to add roads or anything like that?
Not really add roads. For any new construction, we would put that on the developer for any of their access driveways. But at this point, again, with the caretaker, road maintenance is still part of that the Army is providing to us. At some point, it will be ours to take over. But yeah, right now, no, the Army is still taking care of that.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, and I know you can't see into the future.
Yeah.
Do you think that the whole Army Depot will eventually become Pueblo's Pueblo-plex?
Do we think that the
Their
entire property?
Are we, is Pueblo going to own all of Pueblo-plex eventually?
the city or the
Or
county?
wait a minute, the whole Army Depot? I didn't mean Pueblo-plex. I meant the whole Army Depot.
Are you asking the city, if the city or the county or?
The
both,
county.
or the county?
That is county, right?
Yes.
It is counting, right?
That's the plan, is that, you know, we're a political subdivision of the state, but once we build it all out completely, then, you know, the idea is to then sell, you know, transact the property back into those tenants, you know, so they can own their parcels, and then it gets back on the property tax rolls. Because it's been, you know, off the property tax rolls for over 80 years. So.
Right. So, do you think the gates will eventually become open to the public?
At some point, once we start to sell and those right of ways or the roadways become right of way, then yeah, the gate will have to go away. And so if there are tenants that want secure areas, then they're gonna have to look at more securing their specific areas. But at some point, the gate will go away once that becomes an actual public roadway.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Do you feel?
Can I just add one comment?
Yes, sir.
One thing that we're super proud of is that we're a pretty small team. There's 7 of us, and we are all Pueblo natives, and we are all like, this is a passion project for us. So we just appreciate your time. But yeah, we're super excited about it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
thank you.
If there aren't any other questions, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move forward with the next item on the council's agenda.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, folks. All right. Okay, up next on the council's agenda, I'd like to welcome Melissa Cook, Director, Department of Housing and Citizen Services. She'll be presenting to us on CDBG Home Action Plan. Get her loaded up there. Okay. All right, Ms. Cook, we will recognize you for 15 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you, Chair Ruiz Gomez. I will try to be quick here. For those who are who sat on council last year. This is a rerun. We have to do this every year. So we are going to be talking about our 2026 annual action plan. So what is our 2026 annual action plan? First of all, the city of Pueblo receives formula funding from HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, federal funding. We receive both CDBG, which is the Community Development Block Grant, and Home Investment Partnership Act funding. During this process, in order to receive these funds, it is a requirement of HUD that we do an extensive public process. This includes several annual meetings that we have with key stakeholders. Every 5 years, we have to do a strategic plan, which we did last year in 2025. We also have a citizen advisory committee, which is very similar to what we've been dealing with CSAC, but it's specific for the CDBG and home funding. So we have a group of citizens that participates and is able to weigh in on what we are going to fund. So we received our allocation. I put the historic numbers in here just so that you can see that for the most part, they stay pretty flat. Generally, we receive about $1.5 million in CDBG, and between $700,000 to $1 million in home funds annually. So this year, our 2026 CDBG allocation is 1.43 million, and our home allocation is 773 million. In addition, what we receive, 773,000. Wish it was 773 million. In addition to that, we also receive an allowance of a Section 108 loan guarantee program or borrowing authority. So with this year's allocation, we did also receive $7.169 million in borrowing authority to borrow against future CDBG funding years. That's always 5 times the annual allocation. So all of this came in the formula grant letter that we received back on April 10th. Just a little bit more information, the Citizen Advisory Committee. So we bring them together. They do review the applications that we receive for CDBG. They actually receive presentations here in council chambers. That happened September of last year. And they're able to ask questions to the CDBG applicants. They have a few different things that they have to consider. They want to look at what the HUD national objectives are, which are set forth by HUD. We have to make sure that whatever it is that we're looking at funding has a low to moderate income benefit, as well as a total impact to the community that we serve. So I want to talk about the timeline. Really, that's what I'm here to present tonight. I'm presenting to you our initial funding recommendations, but even more so, I want to be very clear about how important it is that we get this timeline, that we get everything that we need to have done through council in time, because we have a very strict deadline coming up very fast. So we started this process all the way back in last May when we opened up applications for the public as well as nonprofits. From July 1st through September 30th of last year, we received those applications, reviewed those applications. We had application presentations. We had a public hearing during that time. And during that time, the Citizen Advisory Committee made recommended awards, which you'll see here shortly. Fast forward to April 10th of this year, that is when we received our letter from HUD that said how much money we would get. And as soon as we receive that, then things start moving very, very quickly. Here tonight, May 4th, I'm presenting to you. We will hopefully be submitting our action plan to HUD by July 3rd for a September 1, 2026 funding award, which is when we would actually receive the funding and be able to start spending it. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into this calendar just to reiterate how important it is that we don't have any delays in the council process. So as I mentioned, on April 10th, that's when we received the allocation letter. The next step is we have to publicly notice for 30 days our draft allocation plan while still collecting comments. That includes putting it in the newspaper, in the Chieftain. So that following week, we were able to get this scheduled to go in the Chieftain. Our 30-day window started April 19th. That means that 30-day window ends May 20th. We are presenting on first reading May 26th. It's a Tuesday, but council will be on Tuesday that week because of the holiday. So immediately presenting on first reading, second reading, and hopefully final approval will be on June 8th of this. That allows us time to submit no later than on June 8th as final reading. That allows us to then submit to HUD by July 3rd, because our drop dead deadline, if this is not approved by HUD by July 17th, we do not receive the funding. There is absolutely no wiggle room in this. I just want to point out that with this timeline, there's only one available council meeting. If there's a delay or we want to postpone anything, and that would be June 22nd. So I present this to you because there's no way that we as city staff could have expedited this or brought this to you any sooner. Just the way that HUD works, our timeline is very, very stringent. So with that, let's talk about what we're actually recommending. First of all, we're able to use up to 15% of our CDBG allocation for public services. I would like to also, just before we jump into this, there is a whole action plan, one pager. It looks like this. You guys can get that. I'm happy to send it out, but it's also online attached to the agenda for this. But with our CDBG funds, we're talking about CDBG right now, not home, we are able to use up to 15% for public services. So those are the applications that we received last year. We received over $500,000 worth of applications. Obviously, we cannot fund that much. The most that we can fund out of this pot is just over $215,000. Our recommendations, once we went to the Citizen Advisory Committee, as well as advising the Citizen Advisory Committee that we had some additional home ARP dollars, was as follows. This year, we were essentially able to fund most of these projects between our CDBG and our home ARP dollars. And it's really a win-win because our home ARP dollars are going to be expiring soon, and we want to make sure to get those dollars out the door. In future years, we don't anticipate that we would be able to award, the allocations as much as we were able to here. So I think this is a win-win for everybody. We're able to do, funding for Posada, Catholic Charities, City of Pueblo, the shelter operations. As you know, the mayor already proposed that we would be putting some of the dollars for the shelter from our home ARP grant. We're doing some eviction diversion for Pueblo County. SRDA has a great program where they offer senior transportation, and they're able to purchase, I think that their match is 10%. So they're able to leverage a state grant of these, $59,000 up to almost $600,000. So, we look at all of these things. We look at leveraging. We want to make the most impact, but essentially we were able to, with the two funding sources, assist everyone in the public services category. Moving on, one of the other big things that CDBG assists with is public facilities and housing activities. So we received 2 citizen applications for just random projects throughout the city. One of them was to resurface the Portland Park basketball court. One of them was stormwater upgrades in an alley down here in downtown Pueblo. As you can see, the stormwater upgrades was not recommended from the CAC for funding, and the Portland Park basketball resurfacing was at a reduced rate, which we are working with Public Works, and they're able to execute that within that budget. The United Way did apply for $200,000 for their lead center, and the Citizen Advisory Committee did not recommend funding for that. I think it was just a timing issue that they applied last May, and the repairs and renovations were already underway. So it seemed that maybe it wasn't necessary to utilize our funding. The Pueblo County has applied for some homeowner rehab that they do within the city. We applied as the Department of Housing and Citizen Services for 170 or 200,000, and 175 was awarded for the minor repair program that we offer. And then, of course, demolition and ADA sidewalk repair was also included in this at very hefty amounts. So those are going to be our 2 main categories or our main priorities this year. Moving on to the home program. So there's $773,000 and some change available. These are received into the Pueblo Consortium. So we actually have a partnership with the city of Pueblo and Pueblo County. The city is the lead on the Pueblo Consortium. We receive 87% of the funds, and they receive 13% of the funds. There is a match required for this. So every year at budget time, you'll see about $200,000 being requested in the budget. We're able to leverage that up, 5 times to receive those funds back. Generally, home investment partnership funding, the eligible activities are going to be those that it's generally housing. You have to be under 60% of the area median income for any sort of tenant or rental opportunities. So generally, we create and rehabilitate residential units. We do tenant-based rental assistance and also offer single-family homeownership opportunities. A recent example that we use our home dollars that came before this body was the Compass Point Apartments, which was a 192 unit deed restricted affordable housing project on Pueblo's east side that's currently being built. And so once you add in the allocation for the city match, we're at $947,000. You can see the distribution of funding. There's not a lot of wiggle room in what the city can allocate funding for. Home is pretty prescriptive. You know, they require that 15% be set aside for community housing development organizations. Our own city administration dollars are very set. And then the allocation amounts that the city and the county get are set by that 87 and 13. The only thing that we put in there that could really change is the very last line, that is Chodo operating. Chodo is Community Housing Development Organization. So of our allocation, we can use 5% that goes towards Chodo operating, which really is just operating funds for certified housing organizations that are trying to create housing. It's usually for housing organizations that do not have a lot of capacity. I will put a plug in here with the Citizen Advisory Committee. We are looking for members to join this. So if you're looking, if members of the public are out there watching and you want to know how your voice can be heard in this process, there's several ways, but possibly one of the most impactful ways is through the Citizen Advisory Committee. And we have vacancies. You do have to live within the city of Pueblo, city limits. But if you are interested to be part of this process for 2027, please go to our website and apply for the Citizen Advisory Committee. And with that, I will take questions. I guess one thing I didn't mention, or I did mention, but the actual action plan will be on first reading later this month and for final reading June 8th.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cook. I will now open up time for questions to be fielded by the council. Looks like we'll begin with Councilor Hernandez.
Hi, Melissa, how are you? Just a couple of questions. On the city programs, the $471,284, what is that for? That's under the Home Investment Partnership.
Yeah, so when we have to receive this budget and appropriate the funds. However, anything that comes out of the home part of it, at least, we would have to have contracts for, and that comes back through council. So what that is it really just goes into a pot of funds until we have a large development agreement or development contract to bring to you. So the Compass Point Apartments that was brought last year, that came from, we identified which years of the home program it came from. We gave them $750,000. So they utilized funds from that for several different years is what we were able to do. So I guess that's a good question. Nobody's sending money out the door at this point. These contracts still have to come back and council still has to approve contracts. This is budget and appropriating, or when we bring the council action, it will be budgeting and appropriating, but all contracts still have to be approved.
So the action plan, did we see the entire allocation of these dollars, or have we not seen that yet?
So the way that it works is HUD sends out their notification to us of how much money we received. That's what we got on April 10th.
Okay.
We now go through this public process. We receive public input. We have several public hearings scheduled, as well as the public input we've received. Once council adopts it, that gives us the green light to then go to HUD and actually submit, this is how we're going to spend these dollars. They then approve it, and that is what has to be done by July.
So we're only going to approve the amount of money that's going to be allocated. We're not going to approve who it's going to be allocated to.
Approval of this action plan would approve those services, those public services
That you listed?
Mhm.
Okay,
that specifically go to Posada, Catholic Charities.
gotcha.
those.
Okay, thank you.
I'll recognize Councilor Dante.
Hello. So I'm gonna try to go through your process here. So, HUD and Home and whomever says they're gonna give you this money, and when you go to submit for it, do you have an agreement with them?
Yes.
And in that agreement, are you supposed to give them quarterly reports and audits or anything?
Oh, yeah, we have a lot of reporting with HUD. It's not just quarterly. We have to do a very intensive annual report every year. We do a variety of different cash on hand reports and other reporting, also including like what we're doing to meet and maintain like Davis-Bacon requirements or Section 3 requirements. So yeah, it's a very big part of our office.
And I'm gonna go the opposite direction. So when you you have an agreement with the organizations that are gonna receive the money, correct? And do they do reports and audits?
Yes.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
We'll recognize Counselor Gomez.
Oh, this is not just questions, but I just want to commend Ms. Cook. You know, I've been here a little while now and you always seem to be very well prepared. You do your homework. The only question I have for you is when do you go to sleep? You're very good at what you do and I'm glad you're on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did just have one question. When you mentioned the average median income, I think that's a median. Can you give us an idea of what that would look like for folks who would like ballparking the amount that this housing would run the citizens to access once it's built?
Yeah, give me just 1 second and I'll give you an exact number. So what's interesting about the area median income is that it takes our MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area. So it's not just the city of Pueblo. And so it actually ends up being very high. And what I would say, there's no statistic to this, but it's actually going to be closer to the average income of the city of Pueblo because we're including the higher income areas like Pueblo West. So if you give me just 1 second, I will give you that number. So for right now, it goes by household size. So I'll give you a household size of 2 and a household size of 3. 80%, which is, so there's 2 numbers in there. I have 80% in front of me. We could do that math really quickly, but 80% at a 2 person household is 65,000 and at 3 person household is 73,000. And so depending on what program we're talking about, it's 60 or 80%. But as I mentioned, they're pretty close to what our average actual incomes are going to be. Several of our census tracts are actually substantially below what the area median income at 100% would be. So for the most part, most people within our community actually qualify for a lot of these programs.
But does it ever swing the other way to the lower end? What does that look like?
Well, none of our, so yeah, it goes all the way down and I'd be happy to share out. I don't have it open in front of me, but every year HUD releases the area median incomes. It goes based on household size 0 to 8. And it is, goes all the way from 10 to 140% of the area median income. So it really just takes what that average area income is, and then it allocates those percentages. In Pueblo, of course, the area median income of 30% of AMI is going to be very low, but there are very few programs out there that actually have subsidies deep enough to tailor to those 30% AMIs. So for anything that we do under the CDBG program, that wouldn't apply necessarily.
Okay, so these programs would basically benefit folks who are middle income. It's not.
It benefits anyone middle income and lower. Let me actually clarify.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have any programs like the Housing Authority has units that are specifically set aside for those at 30% of the area median income. We help the Housing Authority build some of those units using our home dollars, but we do not have any restrictions that say that they have to have that deep of affordability. Anytime that we receive an application, the deeper the affordability, the higher scoring the application. But there's no programs that we have right now or support right now that say that you have to have that extremely deep affordability. That doesn't mean that it doesn't help people in those brackets, those income brackets, because it absolutely does. But our affordability is more on the average area median income of 60 or 80, just because those are HUD's program guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
I just have one closing remark.
Yes.
Because of the timeline, I just ask that council looks at these suggestions or these recommendations. If there are questions, please reach out to me ahead of time so that we can address those concerns, or let me know what I can address publicly during the next 2 public meetings, just to make sure that we stay on track.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much, Ms. Cook. Seeing none, we'll move on with the council's agenda. Let's see. All right, I'd like to invite up Mr. Noah Stam from Drainage Study Phase 3. He'll give us a presentation on Study Phase 3, State Fair and Bessemer, the drainage study. All right, just give him a second to get loaded here. All right. Okay, Mr. Stam, if you all are ready, we will acknowledge you for your presentation for 15 minutes.
Thank you. Evening, councilors, evening, Madam President, evening, Madam Mayor. We're here today to present to you the drainage plan for the State Fair and Bessemer neighborhood, specifically the Phase 3. My name is Noah Stam. I'm the Stormwater Coordinator for the Stormwater Department.
Good evening, and my name is Melissa Bryant. I'm with Respect Engineering, working on the project.
So a little agenda today is we're going to go over the project recap. We are here back in July to kind of give a Phase 1 update. That was basically the baseline hydrology and hydraulics. Phase 2, we did not come present on, as mostly the city staff diving in with a consultant. And then we'll dive into Phase 3 is what we're mainly here to present today, which is the conceptual designs for concepts we've identified to reduce the flooding in this neighborhood. And then we'll discuss next steps and take any questions after. So a little project overview. The area we're talking about today is kind of starts near Lake Minnequaw and then goes up all the way to I-25. We identify it as the State Fair and Bessemer neighborhood. The study area is roughly 1,600 acres. There's 3 major systems we tasked our consultant to look at. It's the Summit system, which is there in the blue, and then the Carteret system, which is there in the red, and then the Route system, which is in that orange yellowish color there. So what's kind of unique about this project area is that we have 3 major systems that all come together and combine, and actually there's only one outfall. So a typical new subdivision in Pueblo, a residential one, we're talking about 30 to 60 acres. And each of those new subdivisions has its own water quality or detention facility. So we're talking about 1,600 acres here with little to none. So of course there's some flooding issues out here, and that's what we're trying to address with the study and moving forward. So Phase 1, we're back here in July. We kind of went over what went into that study. So Phase 1, we knew there was flooding out here almost anytime it rained. We were aimed at quantifying the flow and amount of flooding throughout the basin. What went into the study was subsurface flow patterns, watershed delineation, data collection, and then finally kind of this 1D and 2D modeling you see on this picture up on the screen. So you could basically see that light blue. This is for the 100-year storm. It shows all the flooding within the streets. This matches the citizen complaint calls we get in when it rains in this area. Basically everywhere out here is flooding, even during minor events, and we're looking at the 100-year here. So the results from the study was 79% of the pipes were undersized out here to meet city criteria. And then Phase 2, like I said, we didn't come present Phase 2, but it was mostly city staff diving in with a consultant and trying to find some solutions to solve this flooding and improve the stormwater conveyance out here. For Phase 2, we're kind of mostly concerned about the overall stormwater basin conveyance, water quality, and reducing the flooding. Of course, we consider the feasibility, cost, and impact when we're discussing those alternatives to move forward to Phase 3. So Phase 3, the consultant was tasked with creating concept drawings of each of the solutions we kind of identified in Phase 2. So the 3 we're going to talk about here today is the Summit Avenue realignment, the Central Park High School baseball field detention, and the Arroyo outfall. So up there on the top side of your screen, starting at Summit, that system currently combines with what we call our Carteret system. This solution is kind of looking at proposing to uncombine them basically, and then reroute that and upsize the pipes. That new alignment would actually go down Lake Avenue and then outfall to Henkel Park, and we would put a detention water quality pond there, and then ultimately it would outfall into the Arkansas River. The Central Park High School baseball field, that would be underground detention underneath the baseball field, like large concrete chambers that would store water. That would basically take all the water from Lake Minnequaw, the outfalls from there, and then the surrounding area, and go there for detention. So the pipes wouldn't have to be so big leaving that park. And then finally, the third concept that we're presenting today is the Arroyo outfall. So that would be focused on our route system. That would be, instead of merging it with the overall system, it would go underneath the interstate and across some railroad tracks and outfall at its own location. So these are the three concepts, just a brief summary of what the concepts are and kind of what we're proposing. The pictures kind of just show you the general location. So that top one, starting at Summit Ave alignment, you could kind of see the picture where Hinkle Park is. So a portion of that park would turn into a detention pond. And then it would cut through down to the screen on where you could see the Arkansas River and outfall there. And then Central Park High School baseball field, that's where the underground storage would go. So it'd be underneath the baseball field. And then the Royal outfall, that's where it would cross the interstate and railroad tracks and outfall on the opposite side of the interstate, separating that system out. And I'll let our consultant jump in here a little bit and kind of talk about some of the pros and cons of each one, some challenges and benefits to each solution.
Sure, thank you. So with the Summit Avenue realignment, what we saw was opportunities to provide some water quality improvements and then also some detention. So we looked at disconnecting it and discharging it towards Hinkle Park. And so what we would want to do is to provide some kind of stormwater park facility. And what we look at with a stormwater park facility, we want it to be more multi-beneficial. And so it will have public amenities on the park, but it will also be a detention area for during times of heavy rain events. And so that will allow the water to provide some filtration and kind of clean it up a little bit. And then once you get the first flows in cleaned up, and everything after that would continue to discharge into the Arkansas River. But again, providing some water quality benefits, providing some detention, but then also providing public amenities when it's not storming. The Central Park High School baseball field, this is a great opportunity to provide detention underneath the field. So we did speak to some contractors to get some cost estimates. With the cost estimates of doing underground detention, it is very expensive. But again, it's an opportunity to provide that detention in this area and collaborate with the Pueblo School District in this area. So that is an added component, because we would have to make sure that we're coordinating with them during their off season to do construction, but then also closures of roads and making sure that we're not impacting any of their schedules. And then with the Arroyo outfall, this one would actually take it along Route Avenue, but the issue with this one is it would be a very complicated project to coordinate with CDOT. We would have to coordinate going under the UP Railroad. We would also have to coordinate with the Smelter Superfund site. And so I believe, I don't remember when that will be completed as far as finishing all the remediation that they're doing there, but it would be probably a couple of years before we could even look at that option. So those were the three that we looked at and found to be the most feasible for the future years.
So based off the concepts, I kind of wanted to go over some of the costs with it. So we're talking about $26 million in total to implement all those concepts we just presented to you guys. So it's a pretty significant amount. We wanted to recognize that cost and recognize that it's going to take some strategic planning and saving over many years to implement all that. I'll help Kurt jump up here at some point and just talk about the stormwater utility only brings in roughly $5 million a year. And we're talking about 26 million here. So it would take some saving for us to get to a point where we could accomplish the overall master plan. So next steps, what we're hoping to move forward with, based off our recommendation from our consultant here, they're recommending us move forward with the Summit system realignment. This one has been identified to be the most feasible at this point. It's going to provide immediate flood relief to the state fair and improve the overall basin conveyance. I think we're looking at between 200 and 300 CFS being rerouted from combining with that shared system into its own. So it's aimed at the state fair area, but it should reduce the flooding in the overall basin. So the Hinkle Park water quality pond. So this is a great benefit to this area. Right now, we're talking about 1,600 acres that has limited to no water quality, right? So you're getting all that oil from the streets, sediment, all that's washing out right into the Arkansas River. So it'd be great to implement this water quality basin for this water to go get treated by some natural processes, catch sediment before it makes its way to the Arkansas River. So some tentative timelines, we're hoping to be back here in late May or early June to award the next design phase to start construction drawings for this solution. So based off that, if we meet that time frame, we're looking at design from June 2026 to early 2027, and then hopefully starting construction in April of 2027, and then by the end of the year being complete with this first phase project. One thing to highlight on that is the stormwater department has been saving money to do a project since 2020 in this master study area. So luckily we have roughly 5.5 million saved up to do something in this area. So it's right on par with this phase one to make something happen. And then obviously the other concepts at this time kind of were not selected, just to the EPA Superfund site. And then the other one, the rail outfall, having to coordinate with CDOT and the railroad could be challenging. So that's why we're going with Summit realignment as the preferred approach right now. So on the screen here, you'll see a snippet directly from our concept drawings that our consultant prepared. This is showing a proposed layout of where the pond would be in Henkel Park. So that top side remained where the existing playground's at, and then also all those trees along that Briondo corridor. And then, so I would go here, provide some water quality, and then a release out of the pond, and then ultimately outfall to the Arkansas River. Our plan is to have some town halls for community buy-in to this. We understand we're taking a park and turning it into a pond. So we're looking at scheduling those in the future. And then our consultant has done this successfully in a couple other communities. So I'll kind of let her go over those projects. And there's a couple pictures of what these would look like, for example.
So Respec is partnering with Architera as our landscape architect, and they have completed some stormwater park infrastructure with us. One of them, this one is actually the Westminster Center Park. But again, as Noah said, our goal would be to provide public outreach just to make sure that we're providing the public an opportunity to know and understand what's going on throughout the process. We have provided website material, but then we also can do town hall meetings where we're providing information both in English and Spanish, just to make sure everybody's being communicated and understands the process and what will be ultimately developed in the area.
There's another picture of another pond in a park area. That concludes our presentation. We'll open it up to any questions you guys may have.
All right, we'll now take some questions from the council. I'll begin with Councilor Gomez.
Yeah, this is unfortunately in my district. I looked at the picture you guys put up there and the picture that they gave of the cars going through where the water, I can tell you the water that I see, I live on the corner of Ormond Mesa. It's in my basement. It's in my restaurant on the first floor. So the pictures that you got here are way off. They're not even close. And I'm not blaming you guys because it's easy to throw darts. I know it's not you guys. I'm just saying we're lucky if we're gonna get this thing done by 2029. Because I've been around a little bit, okay? And I don't see this thing. I think you're gonna have are there any more studies that are gonna come up after 2027? Is that gonna be it?
Yeah.
This is it. This was our final
So
study.
have you given you an actual end date for this project to end so we can actually get Bessemer back to dry land?
So at this time, I think the overall date is unknown, but we're wanting to move forward with this first phase project, which would be the Summit System realignment, which would solve a lot of flooding out there, mostly aimed at the state fair, but it should improve the overall basin.
I'm sorry, you're gonna talk a little louder.
It's the Summit realignment system project that we're wanting to move forward with at this time. So it'll be the state fair area going down Summit and then turning down Lake, but it would improve the overall basin. We're taking a lot of flow out of that combined system.
I've been living through this since 2000 for the last 26 years, and it's enough. And again, I'm not blaming you guys. You're trying to fix it. you probably weren't around when this was going on, but they have put up with a lot there. My foundation is going, not just mine, my whole neighborhood. Whose house do you think they come over and visit to complain? Right here. Their foundations are going to hell over there. And it's because of water. And you guys know what water will do to your foundation. And when it sits like that, under that kind of water for days at a time and slowly leaks out with probably every kind of disease you can imagine that's there, we have a lot of people in that area sick as well. So I guess I'm venting a little bit because I want you to know. And again, I'm not blaming you guys. It's not your fault. But the reality is that I don't think we're going to see this resolved for a while. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and so the goal with this, so we're finishing the study up. So this is the final phase of the study portion, and we're moving into actual construction design, so actual construction drawings, and then we're moving from there directly to construction to start working out some of these issues. So up until this point, there was a 1995 master planning study done, there was a 2007 master planning done. We're wrapping up this portion, and now we're moving actually into design to start making some headway on fixing these issues.
Well, one thing I've learned is don't get guys that are trying to help you don't get mad at them. It's stupid. So I'm just saying, I'm not blaming you guys. I appreciate what you're doing, but we've been dealing with this for a little while. Thank you, though.
Yep.
Thank you. I will recognize Councillor Dante.
Can we go back to slide 5? I think it's 5. Yeah, right there. Now, my husband calls me direction deficit, so I'm trying to understand what I'm looking at. You've got, all the way up the top there, you have those really large pipes. It looks like going through Hinkle Park and past Central High. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, and then you've got some other areas here that have blue in them. Are those small pipes that you're replacing or something?
They're pipes that were identified to be upsized.
They
So
would be-
yeah, there's existing pipes all through Summit Avenue that are undersized, and all the blue would need to be upsized. So we'd have to dig those up and put bigger ones in the ground.
Okay, and the one that goes all the way down to the lake, what is that lake? Is that Minnequa? So you're taking it down into Minnequa Lake, using it as a pond? No.
No, it flows from Lake Minnequa towards the river.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it flows south to north. Yep.
South to north. It's interesting. Okay, and on this map is Canal Street where Bessemer starts?
Right there on the kind of the southern end there.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily where the neighborhood of Bessemer starts.
So you're taking it up to Bessemer, but not into Bessemer?
Well, so that's existing infrastructure that's already in place. So a lot of those blue ones are existing pipes that are currently there that are just too small. So like Noah mentioned, about almost 80% of our existing stormwater infrastructure that's underground is undersized. So we either need to, with these systems, we need to add bigger pipes, we need to add more pipes, or we need to provide detention to slow that water down. So those are kind of our three options. So a lot of this identified upsizing pipes, so adding additional pipes. And then this current system also added new infrastructure as well as upsizing some of the existing infrastructure and providing some of that detention and water quality.
Okay, because I keep hearing that. I don't live near Bessemer. I live up north. And I keep hearing how Bessemer is flooding, and I was kind of concerned that I didn't see more pipes down into Bessemer.
Yeah, there's probably a need for additional pipes and additional, upsizing as well. I mean, this was kind of the alternative route that we looked at. The Arroyo I-25 crossing would go a long ways because we could disconnect some of that system coming from Bessemer and route it across the interstate. But unfortunately, until the EPA kind of figures out what they're going to do as far as a remediation plan, and I think their record of decision is not due till 2028, we're not going to have any idea of what we might need to do to mitigate the existing contaminated soils in that area. So that one's kind of a non-starter for us at this point.
Okay, now I understand a lot better. Thank you.
Okay, the chair will recognize Councilor Gomez and we'll come on over to Councilor Latino.
I'm just curious, when I was studying this back when, the piping at the time undersized 12-inch, 15-inch ceramic pipe. Now, I want to make sure that when I had called back several months after I started checking this stuff, if they had the upsized pipes were going, from the research I remember, was at 48 inches to 72 inches. Yeah. Is that, so we're not going to see that in Pueblo, are we? We're going to see that kind of the 40. Okay, good. Because I think you can drive a dang car through it now. But I was just curious, the ceramic is gone. Correct? All PVC now?
We use RCP, our high performance polypropylene pipe now. Yep.
Okay.
So no more clay pipe or any of that stuff.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair will recognize Councilor Latino.
Yes, basically, my concern is aesthetics and in terms of Bessemer, because Bessemer and the east side, and obviously you're not dealing with the east side, but Bessemer and the east side are have been the doormats for this whole city. And there are people who live up there and we need aesthetics up there too. And we need, in other words, not just a ditch, you know, we need something to beautify that area and just, instead of just the water. He and I tour that area quite a bit as he does my area. We work with each other because we're dealing pretty much with the same things. These two areas have been neglected for decades. And so I need to know what your plan is in terms of beautifying and aesthetically that area.
As far as beautiful, like as far as Hinkle Park goes, or anything else, because most of this is gonna be underground.
All you got's dirt there and then water flowing through and there's a fence and it might be barbed wire and there's no chain link. There's nothing. I mean, it just, there's no landscaping at all. So I guess that's what my point is. There's no landscaping there at all.
Are you talking about just the Bessemer ditch
I'm
itself?
talking about the Bessemer ditch itself and where it goes right through the neighborhoods.
Got it. Yeah, so that is not owned by the city. That's not our purview to beautify that section or do anything with
Who
that.
does it belong to?
Bessemer Ditch Company?
So basically, don't you think you guys should be working with them to bring this together as a team? That's how teams work. That's how you win championships.
Absolutely, and we'll be coordinating with them. We have to run some of this piping underneath the Bessemer ditch, but we're not planning on outfalling anything additionally into the ditch. I think the ditch is already pretty close to at its maximum capacity, and they probably don't want our potentially contaminated stormwater going into their irrigation. So we're likely going to try to keep those waters separated so they can have their thing and then we do our thing. So our outfall will actually go directly to the Arkansas River.
Again, I understand what you're saying, but I'm talking about aesthetics now. You know?
I mean, we can certainly have that conversation with the Bessemer Ditch Company. I know it's falling apart.
Yeah, I definitely think you need to have that discussion because it's the same thing with the Fountain Creek, you know? And you have nothing to do with that, but when we're talking about Bessemer and that area up there, those people, that community has been neglected again. And I use that as an example because it's the same thing on the east side. And that ain't gonna happen anymore. We need your help. Thank you.
The chair will recognize Councilor Boston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This comes from one of the brightest minds that used to be with us. They were asking about the Pueblo Conservancy District and if you have plans to coordinate with them when it comes to the outflow crossing the river. I'm not sure if you mentioned that earlier.
No, we will. We absolutely plan to coordinate with the Conservancy District. I was at their meeting several months ago and we kind of talked about kind of long-term projects and how we can do a better job coordinating with them. I think that communication's kind of been, substandard previously, but yeah, we definitely plan on running all of this through the Conservancy District and getting their buy-off and hopefully their help and participation with this project.
So we look forward to seeing this come to fruition. We all know that Bessemer could use some help.
Okay. All right, and no other questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move forward. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us tonight and your work with the city to do this for Bessemer. Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next on the council's agenda, we will welcome Mayor Graham and she will update us on the economic development process. Just give a minute for, oh, looks like we're loaded. All right, we'll recognize you, it looks like for 20 minutes.
Okay, I don't think it'll take that long, but this is just going to be a brief overview of what we've been doing with economic development since really last June. This is really kind of a two-part presentation. So we'll get started. So the first part of this is really, we continuously get the question, what is Advance Pueblo? Advance Pueblo is an internal group that meets within my office. It started last June. We collaborate with the Urban Renewal Authority, internal departments like Public Works, Planning, maybe Stormwater, maybe Wastewater, depending on the project that we're dealing with at the time. We really like to envision ourselves as the connectors for anybody coming for the city for any kind of economic development, housing projects, anything that you need to put a shovel in the ground to get up vertical for. And we really help you coordinate between the departments. That now maybe includes also the Southern Colorado Building Department. We get a lot of questions and concerns that we go back and forth with them as well. We talk about future incentives and innovative solutions to streamline processes within the city, within the Urban Renewal Authority. And we also review processes that were existing, and we try to streamline and think of ways that we can enhance economic development within the city. So one of those outcomes this year that the city council passed was the change to the criteria ordinance for the house and sales tax. So who is Advance Pueblo? So it's a lot of people. Every Tuesday, myself, Andrew Hayes, Ivana Percival, she's our economic development marketing coordinator. She's part-time out of my office. Pura ED board members. Sometimes it's the same board members, sometimes it's different board members. Sometimes we have additional partners like the planning department or the HARP authority. It just really depends on who we're trying to give assistance to that week. But we meet every single Tuesday. Previously, the county also was part of that meeting, and PEDCO from roughly June until January of this year. So just every Tuesday meeting where we recap, talk about different ongoing projects. They could be demo projects, they could be building projects, they could be future incentive projects, anybody that needs some kind of help when it comes to economic development in the city. The second part of this group is our review committee. And since January 1st, when the PEDCO contract ended, the city has continued to review and take applications in for economic development. We have been kind of a one-stop shop, a point of contact for people trying to apply for the half-cent sales tax funds to the city. So in doing so, we have a review committee that meets every other Friday afternoon, which consists of city attorney, director of finance, director of the Urban Renewal Authority, myself, Councilman Hernandez, Councilman Boston, sometimes the planning director, sometimes Public Works, and our ED marketing coordinator. And this is where we take the time to review any applications that have come into the city in order to use the half-cent sales tax fund or to get some kind of inquiry or request to the city when it comes to economic development. So some kind of help. This is where we talk about these projects and review these projects. You can see in the picture I put up, this was our last meeting, and this is Councilman Boston talking about an idea that he has at the HARP. So in our weekly meetings, as I spoke, we talk about subdivision, annexation, urban renewal districts, utility supports, whether that be from Black Hills or Excel. We talk about tap fees and different incentives. Frequently, the city waives tap fees for large housing developers that come into the city in order to bring affordable housing. So that might be a project we talk about. We talk about housing projects, maybe putting out RFQs or RFPs for city-owned land that we have and what that process looks like. And we also talk about new ideas in general. So this is really where the Building Back Bessemer initiative started. You can see that I have the lights, the picture of the lights across Union Avenue. This is kind of some back and forth, and this idea came from having discussion in Advanced Pueblo. And then at the bottom, you can see the 8 new units for the homeless shelter. So Advanced Pueblo is a wide variety of topics, internal committee that meets and discusses. When it comes to reviewing the applications that are coming in now to use the half-cent sales tax or request assistance, prospects, individuals can contact Advanced Pueblo on the city website. We're right on the front page, Advanced Pueblo. Contact form, you send your email name, phone number. We might send you an application or we might just call you, kind of depending on what you're looking for and what you need. Applicant fills out the application, staff reviews the application, requests additional information, could be financial information, could be a site visit, job descriptions, project narratives, and any kind of an additional ask from the city. The committee then meets to review all the documents that have been submitted. Staff advises on financial matters, criteria ordinance, project specific details, such as zoning, et cetera. And so that's really led to the staff, and then the staff briefs the committee on things that are allowed or not allowed, whether a project fits the criteria, whether the zoning is appropriate, whether this is even something we can fund or we can look at, or this is even the avenue that we should be taking for this project. We then bring it back to the committee. The committee outlines and defines what recommendation goes to council based off the viability of the total project and the total concept. City staff prepares all the documents that then go to city council for approval or disapproval. And then we take care of that in executive session. So we're really the go-betweens between individuals, prospects looking for money, incentives, requesting information when it comes to the city. And we have been doing this for the last 5 months since the PEDCO contract was terminated. So we have not skipped a beat. You are probably actually sick of my memos that you get every week with some updates, some not. Just trying to keep council apprised of partners calling, economic development projects, where the half-cent sales tax fund stands, and any other additional relevant information. Up at your dais, you have a copy of the application and what's requested, and that's on the screen in the right-hand corner. So after we get all the documentation, we get all the financial information that the city has requested, we are going to take it to city council. So we've taken one project, city council said, go back and get more information. We're going to have executive session tonight where I'm going to brief you on 17 different projects and where they stand. At that point, city council will give staff recommendation for approval, denial, more information. Staff will then coordinate with the prospects to get that information. And then proposals will come to city council agenda, and city council will approve them and discuss them in public. To your right-hand screen is a project summary, in which you'll get later tonight. You have a copy of it in front of you, a blank one of what it looks like. Talks about the applicant, the review date, the project overview, incentive support requested, eligibility and criteria met, and the economic rationale that the committee puts together, staff puts together, and we present it to the 7 of you. So our current applications look like this. As of 1/1/2026, 17 applications or inquiries have been handled by us. We had one referral from OEdit, and all 17 of these projects have had some kind of communication back, if not weekly, several times a week. And then that communication is reported back to city council in the weekly memos that I send you. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mayor Groom. We will begin with giving the council an opportunity to field questions. And it looks like Councilor Gomez, would you like to begin?
Yeah, I've studied this extensively as well, and it's quite known that I'm against anything to do with advanced Pueblo, which I think is just an opportunity for them to get rid of advanced Petco that's been doing this economic development plans for the last 42 years. And as a matter of fact, I think it should be advanced Petco, not advanced Pueblo. You could have easily worked with Petco, and they've been doing this for such a long time. Now I've gone through this to find out what are some of the dangers that we can look at and why we shouldn't be having the mayor's office so involved. When a mayor sits on the Urban Renewal Authority board that is otherwise composed of elected civilian commissioners, the issue isn't about legality. It's how power, oversight, and incentives line up. That means money. In Colorado, the setup is allowed under statute, but it's introduced several structural problems that are working, that you should be taking seriously as a council. Blurred separation of powers. And I've mentioned this, I don't know how many times. We can't keep on having the overlapping of the legislative with the executive branch. In a strong mayor system, under the Pueblo City Charter, the mayor is the executive, which we're not denying. A urban renewal is supposed to function as a quasi-independent, the key word is independent authority, making project level decisions. When the mayor sits on that board, the executive is now directly participating in decisions of the semi-independent body. It weakens the intended arm's length relationship between city government and redevelopment authority. The downside, less structural independence, more centralized control. Influence over who decides and what gets decided. Under Colorado Revised Statutes 3125-104, the mayor typically appoints most URA commissioners and may also serve as one of them. We're not debating that. This creates a dual role, however. Gatekeeper, appointing the board, participating, voting on outcomes. Downside, even without wrongdoing, it concentrates influence in a way that reduces diversity of viewpoints, makes the board less independent in practice. There's an accountability mismatch. URA board members are not directly elected. They often serve long staggered terms. The mayor is elected and politically accountable. When the mayor joins the board, decisions are made in hybrid space that's not fully accountable to the voters. Civilian members may defer to the mayor's political authority, which is normal if you ask me. Downside, unclear accountability. Voters can't easily trace responsibility for decisions that are made. Conflict of interest risk, structural, not personal. This is not personal. I'm just telling you the way we're doing it is wrong. The URA controls powerful tools, tax increment financing, which has to do with money, land acquisitions with taxpayer funds, development incentives. The mayor, meanwhile, is setting broader economic policy, working with developers and stakeholders citywide. And I've been against that from day one. Downside, even if ethical rules are followed, the mayor is in position to influence project at the policy level, then helps approve them at the implementation level. That is a classic two hats problem the council now has. Reduced checks on redevelopment deals. And again, I've been screaming about this for a long time. URA boards are supposed to provide independent review of projects, a buffer between politics and financing decision. If the mayor is on the board, staff and commissioners may be less likely to challenge the proposals aligned with mayoral priorities. Downside, fewer internal checks, higher risk of oversubsidized deals, and politically driven project selections. This has a chilling effect on civilian board members, which are urban renewal. Civilian commissioners are typically volunteers or modestly compensated, not political actors. Now add the mayor to that mix in the room. Dynamic shift, harder to dissent publicly, risk of perceived or real pressures. Downside, the board may
Excuse me, Council.
become less
Gomez,
deliberative
I'm gonna-
and
one more minute
I
for you
got
to
one more.
finish up,
I'll
so
finish up in a
Mayor
minute.
can respond.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Undermines the purpose of having a separate authority altogether. City creates URAs to isolate redevelopment decisions from day-to-day politics, provide specialized semi-independent governance. If the mayor is embedded in this board, that separates, becomes more formal and not functional. Downside is my last comment here. Downside, you keep the complexity of a separate authority, but less much of an independent benefit. Legal compliance. One municipal official like a mayor to sit on an urban renewal board, the mayor appointment is authority. So this setup is legal, but legally it's optimal design. Many Colorado cities avoid this issue by making the entire city council the URA board. The council has more direct responsibility than the mayor does. Keeping fully separate from elected officials altogether. So that's the end of my statement. Thank you.
Mayor, would you like to respond?
I was just wondering if there was a question in your tangent or it was just a tangent tonight, Counselor Gomez. Okay.
Carol, recognize Counselor Boston, then we'll move over to Counselor Dante.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say, as she mentioned, I'm one of the people that sits on this board, and it's been very, I think, important that a lot of the prospects that were in Pueblo with Pedco are not being left waving in the wind. There's a process that we're trying to continue to get them through, so we make sure that we can keep moving economic development forward in Pueblo. And no matter whether or not there is a recommendation for approval or denial, City Council still gets the final say. And even the ones we don't recommend, anybody that submits an application is going to be presented to council. So I just wanted to reassure everybody of that, and that I think the process is a good thing to have that we currently have in our time of figuring out who our next development partner is going to be.
Thank you, Counselor Boston. Counselor Dante?
This question is not about bringing in other companies, but people have really good ideas, but they just don't know how to, go through the process.
Mhm.
Not necessarily, not just the process of an application, but what government help they need.
Sure. We filled those types of questions and inquiries as well. It could be something from a connection at the building department to expand or a change of use. We got a inquiry today about a change of use for a business in the city. And so we're happy to be the connector and help with all of those questions and tell people the process, be a concierge and walk them through the process. Sometimes they're not asking the city for anything other than help, maybe how to apply for a business license, who they need to talk to. That's what Advanced Pueblo is about. It's about connecting people to get it done in a swift manner. And to make sure that there are no loose ends and to help the general public get the answers that they need to questions that you just can't Google, right? Or you just don't know where to go in the city. Or is it the city you're even supposed to be talking to? Or maybe you're supposed to be talking to the county or the building department. So we're happy to help with any of those inquiries, and they can contact my office and we'll direct them in the right way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. I also sit on the committee with Counselor Boston, and I think one of the things that I want people to understand is that right now we don't have an economic partner, and that void has to be filled. And so we're doing everything we can to look at every application that comes in. We help people through the application process. We want to continue to try to get business to come to Pueblo so that we can utilize those dollars that we have. What's most important is that trying to bring jobs to Pueblo. I mean, that's the whole point of the Economic Development Fund, the Half-Cent Sales Tax Fund. And so I think until we do have an economic partner, I don't know a better way that we could do it right now. So we're working hard on all of those applications, and we'll continue to do that. So thank you.
Any other questions? I think that this is, thank you for the information, and I think we could just work a little more collaboratively to have a more continuity between these applications that are getting fielded through Advanced Pueblo and those wishing to come before the work session. So we'll come up with something that together, that we can have some good continuity between that. We'll talk about that at another time when we can do that. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward with the council's agenda. Okay, we will take some time now for each of the counselors to go over their committee updates. And whoever would like to begin, please turn on your light. Perfect. We'll start with Counselor Latino, then we'll go to Counselor Dante.
Thank you, Councilwoman Luis Gomez. The airport is in the process of establishing a contract with a food provider, a restaurant provider. And this came at the last meeting that the airport board had, that Mr. Pedroza, the airport executive director, chaired. And so we will have a restaurant and very possibly two restaurants working at the airport in the very near future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Dante?
Yes, I'm on the ADA Advisory Committee, and they gave the annual work session presentation at the last work session, so there's not much else going on there. On the Homeless Commission, we'll be voting, we went and revised our bylaws. It took about 2 meetings, and our next meeting, we're going to be approving those revised bylaws. Fountain Creek Water District, they did the citywide cleanup at Runyon Lake, and they got 72 bags of trash from Runyon Lake and the area around Runyon Lake. And then I'm also on PayCog, but I'm gonna let Brett talk about, our Counselor Boston, talk about that since he's the president. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Boston, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Starting off with PayCog. PayCog, we didn't really have too much going on besides we had the long range passenger trail, long range transportation plan presentation for the rail. That was pretty informative. Hopefully that can see a little more love down south. It's kind of going to be something that just kind of starts in the north. I think it's Denver to Fort Collins is the initial plan, and then they got to figure out funding from there on. So hopefully that's not going to be something that just stays up in the north. We were also able to, I believe, pass our funding for the year. And then we're continuing our RTA plan discussions. It's very preliminary, very early on. I'm just seeing about the possibility of adding an RTA down in Pueblo so we can get a lot of that transportation money started, so we can get a lot of those big throwaways paved a lot of the roads. Because I know that's one of the biggest complaints in the community is when you're going to pave our roads, but got to find a way to pay for it. When it came to planning and zoning, this was the first meeting that we've had in quite some time. Ian's Pizzeria for a local landmark status is something coming up. That's a big deal for Bessemer. I think that's a business that's been there since the 40s, if I'm not mistaken. And then just some other minor rezoning things. And I did not have a chance to attend my other 2 board meetings this month. I had some personal things going on, but I'll have updates for you next time. Otherwise, the boathouse is open. It was pretty awesome. So I hope you're able to go check that out when you have time. That's all I have.
Thank you. As for myself, as I am assigned to the asset forfeiture committee, this is a committee that meets as needed, and there is a meeting scheduled May 26th, and as come June or end of May, we will update you on that. I also attended the PayCog committee meeting, and we were just talking about approving that long-range plan, which has a lot of key things that are going to be good for the city, I think. And then the library board, as of right now, that's another committee. As of right now, no vacancies are for that board are open, and so nothing there to report. Counselor Gomez, do you have something?
Yeah, I sit on the PDF board. I'm just going to take this time to clarify what exactly that might be. I'll give you a paragraph, but I'm going to tell you from what I review. Public Development Foundation is a separate organization. We got to clarify. It is not part of PEDCO, okay? They're two different entities, two different boards. They have different missions. They may be in the same building, but it doesn't mean they're the same organization. That's the first thing. Way back when Tony Fortino was around, and back then they got a bunch of investors together, including a lot of folks with money and a lot of influence, and they decided they would help the city be able to purchase things in the time of to get things done, because the processes that we go through to get money to do funding for this is ridiculous sometimes. So they stepped up, they put a lot of their money to get a lot of their investors, and they allowed the city to borrow and get money to get projects done. Well, what's going on now, I sit on this board, they've asked me to sit on this board, and it's something that I think every board in Pueblo should consider. If you have a chance to change your bylaws, I would suggest you don't look for appointments from the mayor or anybody else. You select your own people that you want to sit on your boards. You don't wait for somebody else to tell you who's coming on. That's just my opinion. That's how PDF does it, and they've asked me to sit on the board. Now, all I can tell you is I've been asking for, I don't know how long, one of the reimbursements are going to come back to this board that is invested in Pueblo, and they're entitled to get their $1.5 million back. Okay, this is going on, what, 3 years now? They haven't seen one reimbursement payback yet, all based on the fact that they keep on twisting that PEDCO and PDF are somehow combined with each other. That's why they're not going to pay the money back. I think they got $230-something $5,000 in interest alone that they're even willing to waive as long as they start getting the reimbursements that they're entitled to. So I'm just utilizing this time to let you know there is a difference. Don't fall for it. They're two different organizations, and that's the one I sit on PDF. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gomez. Councilor Hernandez.
Thank you, Counselor. I sit on the Southern Colorado Building Department, and they are 4 full months into services just for the city of Pueblo. And I can tell you that after a not a shaky start, but an uneasy start, business is picking up for the Southern Colorado Building Department. And I think that as they move forward, they're going to have some great successes for the city. I also sit on the Latino Chamber of Commerce, and they recently wrapped up their Latino Leadership Development Institution program. They hosted a membership open house, and they're holding their Cinco de Mayo marketing campaign for their members. I also sit on the Pueblo Chamber of Commerce, and right now we're still working through the legislative session and hope to have a better report with regards to how the legislative session worked out for the Pueblo Chamber. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, councilors. At this time,
I
yes,
just want to make sure that everybody else realize that Mr. Aleph is back. Mark, we miss you greatly, and I know what you had to go through, so I felt remiss in not acknowledging that, but I'm glad you're back, Mark. Thank you.
thank you, Councilor Gomez. And yes, indeed, welcome back, President Aliff. We're glad to have you here this evening. Okay, at this time, we'll move forward with the council's agenda, and I would look to entertain a motion to move into executive session.
Madam Chair, I move to go into executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and or instructing negotiators under CRS section 24-6402, parent 4, parent E, parent I, and the following additional details are provided for identification purposes to discuss the status of various pending economic development applications, including but not limited to MXV Rail and Project Falcon.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, the council will now move into executive session. It is May 4th, 8:42 PM, and this work session of Pueblo City Council is now adjourned.